What if I told you that your ancestors had sex with completely different species of humans and their DNA is still inside you right now? Or that some ancient cultures believed a baby could have multiple biological fathers at the same time? Today, we are diving into the most bizarre sexual practices of early humans, and some of these will change how you think about human history. Before we jump in, a quick reality check. Archaeologists are not unearthing romance scenes. They work like detectives. They read bones, teeth, and ancient DNA. They study pigments on cave walls and carvings in ivory. They look at chemical signatures in enamel that reveal where a person grew up. They listen to living traditions in small-scale societies that preserve old solutions to old problems. What seems strange from a modern apartment often made sense in a world where your pantry depended on the weather and your neighbor's goodwill. Sex and kinship were social tools. They built alliances, reduced conflict, and moved food and care to the right people at the right times. Starting with number 12, storytelling as sex education. Imagine a ring of firelight and an elder whose voice can hush a crowd. In groups like the Agta, the evening story is not just entertainment. It is a memory palace that stores the rules of intimacy and kinship. A tale about a clever girl who outwits a trickster is also a lesson about consent and courage. A joke about a bungling suitor quietly encodes who counts as kin and who is strictly off limits. Stories teach when courtship visits are welcome and which gifts signal genuine intent. They recall the names of families who share obligations and warn about lines you must not cross. Communities with master storytellers tend to show more cooperation and fewer blowups because everyone shares the same mental map. In a world without schools, the library is alive and it talks to you by the fire. It tells you how to love without breaking the village. At number 11, a mirror from the animal world. Bonobos are not human, yet they are close relatives and their behavior holds a message. In bonobo groups, intimacy is a social solvent. Greetings become calmer, fights end faster. Sharing food is easier when tensions melt. Female coalitions carry real power. Males rise with help from their mothers. This is not a blueprint for people. It is a reminder that non-reproductive intimacy is ancient in the primate family. Affection and play can be tools for peace. When your species must cooperate for years to raise slow-growing children, anything that cools tempers and builds trust becomes valuable. Coming in at number 10, ritualized partner exchange among Arctic peoples. Historical Inuit communities practice co-marriage under strict rules. On the surface, it looks like partner swapping. Inside the culture, it reads as a survival contract. The Arctic can turn one sled mishap into a tragedy. Co-marriage created a formal network of obligation. If you traveled far from home, your partner's family owed you shelter. If a hunter died, the partner carried duties toward the widow and child. Jealousy had less room to grow because the expectations were public and supervised. These arrangements smoothed hospitality across dangerous distances and seasons. The intimate piece was the seal in a wider pact that moved food, warmth, and protection across the ice. Number 9 takes us to residence rules that quietly engineer who meets whom. Teeth hold clues because they're enamel locks in local water signatures from childhood. When most females in a cemetery grew up elsewhere, and most males grew up local, you have patrilocal residence. Women move in at marriage. Men stay near fathers and brothers. Fresh genes arrive each generation through incoming wives. Not every society did this. Some were matrilocal with men moving in. Others were flexible. In several small Neanderthal bands, evidence suggests women were the travelers who prevented tiny groups from folding in on themselves. Residence rules are not just about where you sleep. They set the boundaries of the dating pool. They govern who you can love, how conflict is settled, and how a community keeps its gene pool healthy when neighbors are few. At number 8, menstrual seclusion. Outsiders often assume it is purely about impurity. Inside many cultures, you find a more complex picture. Seclusion can guarantee rest from heavy labor. It can create a women-centered space for teaching remedies, birth wisdom, and ritual knowledge. It can set a predictable rhythm for intimacy and recovery that couples can plan around. Sacred framing can shield bodies from overwork and create solidarity. Practice varies widely and some versions carry stigma. Many others function like a private university with a door. Women step into a space that protects time, shares knowledge, and gives the whole camp a calendar to follow. Number 7 brings us to the Venus figurines of Ice Age Europe. Small sculptures of female bodies carved between roughly 40,000 and 10,000 years ago keep showing up in caves and open-air sites. Some emphasize the belly, breasts, hips, and the vulval triangle. Some wear carved necklaces or patterned hats. Some are minimalist and smooth. Their exact purpose is still debated. They might be icons of abundance. They might be protective charms for pregnancy and birth. They might be teaching tools for midwives who coach first-time mothers without written charts. They could even be self-portraits carved by women looking down at their own bodies late in pregnancy. Whatever they show how human minds turn sex and reproduction into symbol and hope. When you cross a cold plain with a child strapped to your chest, a polished figure in your pocket can feel like a promise that tomorrow will come. Hundreds scattered across thousands of miles tell us sex and birth sat near the center of spiritual imagination. At number 6, the biology of extended motherhood. In many foraging groups, mothers nurse on demand for years. Frequent nursing suppresses ovulation for many women, which leads to natural birth spacing without charts or gadgets. The average gap can be around 4 years. That pattern shapes everything. Parents can carry one child while an older sibling walks. Grandmothers and aunties can add food to the household when the hunt fails. Couples continue intimacy, but pregnancies arrive slowly. The community avoids being overwhelmed by too many infants at once. In such societies, the grandmother effect becomes a quiet superpower. Older women who no longer bear children gather and cook and watch the fire so that nursing mothers can rest. Survival is a communal project, and the rhythms of the body guide the pace. Number 5 introduces partible paternity, the belief that a child can have multiple fathers. In several Amazonian cultures, the fetus is thought to form from accumulated semen. A woman may seek sex with more than one man during pregnancy to build a stronger child. The community then treats the child as linked to each man who contributed. Those men treat the child as theirs in different degrees. Meat and protection flow accordingly. What looks bizarre becomes elegant when you see the economics. A mother secures multiple investors. Jealousy cools because the belief system says these acts build the baby rather than betray a partner. The child grows with more than one adult male watching their back. Risk spreads across many shoulders, and alliances form that can save a family when the forest turns stingy. At number 4, the physical changes that set humans apart from other apes. Many mammals have penile spines. Humans do not. Many primates carry a bone inside the penis. Humans do not. Some female primates advertise fertility with visible swellings. Human ovulation is largely concealed. Our testis size sits between the extremes. Add these features together and you get a story about social behavior. The human body seems tuned for pair bonding and regular affectionate contact rather than constant mating competition. If you cannot read fertility by sight, you maintain relationships through ongoing tenderness. If your anatomy does not push for brief and frantic encounters, you invest in trust and shared tasks. These are tendencies rather than strict rules. The body whispers that friendship and play matter in a species that must raise slow, maturing children in risky landscapes. Number 3 points to ritual genital modification, specifically penile subincision in parts of Aboriginal Australia. This initiation is not a random act. It belongs to a ceremonial system that turns boys into men in the eyes of the community. The act is framed by song cycles, law stories, and the guidance of elders. Anthropologists have read it as a symbolic way for men to participate in the creative power associated with female bleeding. It also inscribes belonging on the body. You carry a visible sign that you endured pain for your people and that you accept obligations to kin and country. Outsiders can fixate on the wound. Insiders see oaths and identities that bind a person to land, law, and community. At number 2, the reality of interbreeding with other humans. So this is not speculation. It is written in modern genomes. People with ancestry outside Africa tend to carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. People from Oceania and parts of Asia can carry Denisovan ancestry. Some of those inherited genes do useful work in present-day bodies. We can peer into ancient genomes and read scenes from small group life that feel intimate and raw. One Neanderthal genome shows parents who were close kin. That suggests a tiny band where the mate search often failed beyond the immediate circle. In that context, meeting another lineage could produce children who linked camps and carried helpful variants. The human past is not a single parade marching straight to us. It is many related parades that sometimes crossed paths, traded tools, and formed families. And at number one, the strangest fact is not a single practice. It is the social container where all of this unfolded. For most of human history, you lived among a few dozen to a few hundred people. Everyone knew everyone. Your dating pool was your extended network, and a handful of strangers encountered at trade fairs, festivals, or boundary visits. Incest taboos were maps written over maps, and elders enforced them with a mix of humor, scolding, and gift exchange. Exogamy rules nudged people to seek partners from neighboring groups. Courtship unfolded in the open. Gifts traveled between families. Reputations walked ahead of you. Privacy was rare. Safety was shared. In such a world, every practice we have described makes more sense. You build rules that reduce conflict because you must keep seeing the same faces every morning. You create rituals that turn rivals into allies because the winter will test your friendships. You craft beliefs that make many men feel tied to a child because a wider father net means more food in hard seasons. You design rest into the calendar because exhaustion kills. You carry symbols in your pocket because hope is easier to hold when your hands are full of work. Step back and the pattern stands out. Sex is not only about reproduction, it is a tool in a larger kit for survival. Storytelling encoded law and etiquette without ever sounding like a lecture. Bonobo behavior reminded us that affection can be a peace treaty in primate life. Co-marriage organized hospitality and support in places where help must travel far. Residence rules shuffled people in ways that kept genes healthy and skills moving. Seclusion created private spaces where knowledge and rest could flourish. Figurines turned fear and hope into touchable prayers. Extended motherhood set a gentle pace that matched the limits of how much a small group could carry. Partible paternity turned potential rivals into co-investors. Human anatomy pointed toward bonds maintained through play and tenderness. Ritual modification marked a person as someone who belongs and who keeps their oaths. Interbreeding stitched lineages together and carried useful variants through time. Small bands held all of this in a tight weave of memory and obligation. None of this is simple or always gentle. People are inventive and emotional. They bend rules when desire or grief demands it. They make new rules when the old ones fail. The strength of these systems lies not in perfection, but in their ability to guide conflict into forms the community can survive. Elders mediate with jokes and with pointed stories. Aunties enforce norms with a glance that can stop a river. Uncles test the patience and respect of would-be spouses. Children learn by watching and by practicing small rituals that grow into adult obligations. The whole machine runs on a shared belief that the group matters and that tomorrow will be easier if we keep today's tempers cool. That same logic still lives in us. The tools have new shapes. The stories are shared on glowing screens instead of around hearths. The rules are written in laws rather than memorized in song. The dating pool is massive. Privacy is easier to find. Yet the old goals remain. Keep children safe. Keep food moving. Keep alliances strong. Keep rivalry from tearing the camp apart. When modern dating feels complicated, you can remember the old toolkit and see the family resemblance. We still use intimacy to mend rifts. We still reach for symbols when we need courage. We still space births when we can, because small bodies need more care than a tired household can provide. We still treat the grandmother who cooks and watches the kids as a quiet hero. You can also remember that the genome is a diary without words. It tells of meetings on windy ridgelines and in deep valleys. Some meetings ended badly. Others ended with laughter and shared food. Enough ended with families that traces remain in us. It is humbling to know we are a patchwork shaped by many crossings. It can be comforting too. It means our inheritance is broad. It means we carry solutions invented by many cousins, not just one line of ancestors. So here is the simple truth hidden inside the bizarre list. Your ancestors were not weird. They were engineers of survival who used intimacy as a Swiss Army knife. Storytelling drew maps for the heart. Bonobo lessons hinted that calming contact can keep the peace. Co-marriage turned strangers into guaranteed hosts during blizzards. Residence rules guided who met and who moved, and they quietly managed genetics. Seclusion balanced bodies and work. Figurines gave courage in the dark. Extended motherhood matched biology to carrying capacity. Partible paternity widened the safety net. Human anatomy whispered that friendship matters. Ritual scars wrote loyalty on skin. Interbreeding gave us a wider set of tools. Small bands made it all possible by holding people in a tight web of memory, gossip, kindness, and consequence. The next time you think modern dating is complicated, imagine trying to find a partner when you know almost every face you will ever meet by the time you are 15. Imagine asking for a match with a gift your family saved for all season. Imagine an auntie song that tells you the rules without naming names. Imagine a pocket figurine polished smooth by hands that worry and hope while the wind howls outside. Imagine a visit from a neighboring band where everyone pretends to talk about trade while the elders watch the way two young people laugh together. That is the context where the so-called bizarre practices lived. They were not wild for the sake of wild. They were smart. They were compassionate in a tough world. And they kept children alive. If you zoom out far enough, you can see the continuity. We still search for rules that calm conflict and give love a fair chance. We still wrap customs around the problem of jealousy and the need for cooperation. We still tell stories that teach without preaching. We still craft symbols to hold when fear rises. We still rely on grandparents more than our pride admits. We still hope our bodies and our minds can sync to make a home steady. The specific forms shift with climate, technology, and crowding. The underlying design goals have not changed much since the first campfire gossip about who is courting whom and when they should visit with gifts. So yes, your ancestors sometimes slept with different kinds of humans, and the proof sits in your cells. Yes, some cultures believed that a child could gather fathers like allies, and that belief turned rivals into helpers. Yes, people made rules about who moved and who stayed, and those rules managed love as well as genes. Yes, communities built rituals and symbols that look strange from far away and look wise from up close. That is not a museum of oddities. That is a catalog of solutions. Your lineage did not stumble forward by accident. It designed social systems with the materials at hand. Skin, story, song, and stone tools. Elders, cousins, teenagers, and babies. Winter, drought, hunger, and the kind of joy that makes work feel light. The results kept families alive long enough to tell us the tale. And in case you are wondering how to apply any of this to a life with phones and cities and endless strangers, start small. Tell better stories that carry your values with warmth. Ease tension with kindness at moments when drama would be easy. Build alliances that are clear in public so jealousy has less room. Give bodies rest when calendars grind people down. Honor the people who make food appear and keep children laughing. Remember that symbols can steady you when you face a hard season. Most of all, treat intimacy as a tool for cooperation rather than a contest for points. That is how people survive their long past. That is how we will get through our complicated present.